It gives me great pleasure to welcome you to this pre-summit event of the 26th Nigerian Economic Summit, NES26, organized by the Sustainability Policy Commission of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group. This year, we seek to engage stakeholders in a big conversation for action to shape strategic partnerships, chart a path to recovery, and build resilience for the country's economy, businesses, and households. We strongly believe that this will put Nigeria in a strong position within the changing world order brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic. The big conversation for action will be driven by a series of pre-summit events such as this one to kickstart discussions on the summit theme, Building Partnership for Resilience. This will enable us to convene a wider range of stakeholders to deliberate on a broad set of thematic and sectoral issues with key outcomes. It has become apparent that Nigeria must seize the opportunity presented by the COVID-19 pandemic to reevaluate its current practices and create more sustainable principles. One of those principles is the circular economic practice. The adoption of circular economic principles does not only lead to higher resource efficiency and less waste, but also promotes the use of strategies that facilitate the reduce, reuse, repair, remanufacture, recycle model. Across the world, the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic revealed that circular economic practices have the potential to provide a more comprehensive response to redesigning our economy into one that is more resilient, socially just, and environmentally safe. So the circular economic principles play a very important role in promoting the sustainability of our environment. So ultimately, the essence of sustainability is to focus on creating a path to economic growth that continues to replicate itself and promotes prosperity in the years to come. According to the World Economic Forum, the circular economy model has the potential to yield up to $4.5 trillion in economic benefits by 2030. However, this requires collaboration amongst all stakeholders. So it is our hope that today's public-private dialogue will help to encourage the practice of circular economy principles and provide short to medium-term recommendations for the government, the private sector, and other stakeholders on how to address circular economic practices in Nigeria. I trust that we'll all contribute our quota and lend the much needed voice and support to make today's engagement a resounding success. I wish us all fruitful deliberations. Thank you, and God bless our country, Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ogechi Obiora, for all those beautiful remarks, welcoming everyone and encouraging all of us to get involved. Thank you so much for that. We will move on to the Honorable Minister, who is going to give us the keynote address. And through this, we will help to understand how we can ensure resilience and decarbonization through the circular economic trajectory in the post-COVID-19 reality or situation in Nigeria. I would like to welcome the Honorable Minister, Chief Sharon Ikeazo, who is the Honorable Minister of State, Federal Minister of Environment, ably represented by Mr. Charles Ikea, who is the Director of Pollution Control in the Federal Ministry of Environment. Mr. Charles Ikea, we are all ears.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Can you hear me? Hello,
Loud
can you hear
and clear.
me?
Loud and clear. We can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay. My name is Charles Ikea, Director of Pollution Control and Environmental Health, Federal Ministry of Environment. I am representing the Honorable Minister of State Environment, Chief Sharon Ikazo, who would have loved to participate in this meeting, but for exigencies of duty. However, she has asked me to represent her and read her speech. I feel highly honored to present the keynote address at this Nigerian Economic Summit Group's Sustainability Policy Commission pre-summit webinar on increasing opportunity. The topic of my keynote address, ensuring resilience and decarbonization through the circular economy trajectory in the post-pandemic reality for Nigeria, cannot be more apt and timely, especially now that we are gradually coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic and its attendant frozen economic activities, job losses, and supply chain disruptions. The theme reflects underlying dynamics in our quest for sustainable development. As you are all aware, the global community is presently faced with many uncertainties about the economic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, the speed of recovery, and the extent to which pandemic-induced shifts will persist in our society. In addition to this, developing countries, including Nigeria, are confronted with a growing waste crisis, which has a major consequence for environmental and health outcomes. For instance, it has been projected that dump sites will account for 8 to 10% of global greenhouse gas emissions by 2025. These recent events in the economy, driven by the trend in climate change, resource scarcity, urbanization, social media, unbridled consumerism, and COVID-19 pandemic, pose a threat to our sustainable development and must be approached strategically in a holistic manner. In Nigeria, for us to avert a drastic decline in economic growth and environmental protection in the post-pandemic era, it has become imperative to shift from the current linear economic model, which is based on resource extraction, production, distribution, consumption, and waste, otherwise called a take, make, consume, throw away pattern, to a new economic model that is resilient and guarantees reduction or elimination of carbon dioxide from energy sources for long-term prosperity. Distinguished participants, this new economic model, circular economy, is a model of production and consumption which involves sharing, leasing, reusing, repairing, refurbishing, and recycling existing materials and products as long as possible, thus extending the life cycle of products. The model offers a tangible pathway towards a resilient and low carbon economic recovery in the post-pandemic reality. Circular economy is supported by green economy, where the use of materials and generation of waste are minimized, and any resulting waste are treated in a way that causes least damage to the environment and human health. In driving green investments, a robust regulatory framework and effective enforcement of legislation are critical. The use of regulations is necessary to address all forms of unsustainable consumption and production patterns, either by creating standards or prohibiting entirely certain operations and activities. Standards can be effective in promoting markets for green goods and services and can induce efficiency and stimulate innovation. Furthermore, regulatory and control mechanisms can also promote principles such as the precautionary principle, polluter pays principle, and programs such as the Stated Producer Responsibility (EPR) program. This can encourage industry to shift to closed cycle manufacturing and efficient take-back schemes for remanufacturing and recycling, thereby promoting circular economy. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, there are many potential opportunities in circular economy spanning through environmental and economic sectors. For instance, its application will reduce pressures on the environment by significantly reducing greenhouse gas emissions through better waste management practices and use of resources such as energy, water, land, and materials in manufacturing, with positive impacts on the climate. Large-scale reuse of raw materials could help reduce landscape and habitat disruption, as well as marine littering, which would in turn help to limit biodiversity loss. Enhance security of supply of raw materials by mitigating risks associated with the supply of raw materials, such as price volatility, availability, and import dependency. Increase competitiveness as it brings savings to businesses and consumers through improved resource efficiency. Trigger a large innovation drive across sectors of the economy because of the need to redesign materials and products for circular use, strengthen economic growth, and create new jobs. However, to fully maximize these opportunities, ambitious policies that not only focus on short-term, but also on long-term recovery efforts will be needed, such as provision of stimulus packages towards shaping a more sustainable transition, removal of fuel subsidies, and the introduction of long-term carbon pricing to help align price signals with green stimulus package, shifting of taxes from labor to the use of finite resources, reduction of taxes on reuse, repair, and remanufacturing activities to incentivize circular designs, provision of schemes that help businesses leverage circular economy principles to improve their competitiveness and environmental performance, leverage digital technologies, achieve inclusivity, and strengthen their resilience against future shocks. Shifting public investment towards key priorities. In circular economy activities and breakthrough innovations, integration of circular economy criteria into public procurement processes as a tool to shift investment in the private sector, provision of stable market for secondary raw materials, provision of coordinated roadmap of actions at the national level to entrench the precept of sustainable consumption and production. The private sector, especially the multinational companies, should fully key into the EPR program and promote circular economy. Increased public awareness and education with support from all stakeholders. Strict enforcement of compliance with the EPR guidelines, giving time frames for those yet to Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, COVID-19 has demonstrated the importance of digital readiness, which allows business and life to continue as usual as much as possible during pandemics. Building the necessary infrastructure to support a digitized world and stay current in the latest technology will be essential for any business or country to remain competitive in a post-COVID-19 world, as well as take a human-centered and inclusive approach to technology governance. To limit the harm, it is important to secure core public services, sustain the private sector, and get money directly to people. This will allow a quicker return to business creation and sustainable development after the pandemic has passed. During this mitigation period, countries should focus on targeted support to households and essential public and private sector services and remain vigilant to counter potential financial disruptions. During the recovery period, countries will need to calibrate the withdrawal of public support and should be attentive to broader developmental challenges. To make future economies more resilient, many countries will need systems that can build and retain more human and physical capital during the recovery, using policies that reflect and encourage the post-pandemic need for new types of jobs, businesses, and governance systems. Distinguished participants, government in our efforts in ensuring resilience and decarbonization of the Nigerian economy has put in place a stimulus package as part of its post-COVID-19 economic sustainability plan. The plan seeks to stimulate the economy by preventing business collapse and ensure liquidity, retain or create jobs in key areas like agriculture and housing, promote manufacturing and local production, extend protection to the very poor and other vulnerable groups. Removed oil subsidy regime to allow for full deregulation of the downstream sector of the petroleum industry. Instituted the green bonds to enable capital raising and investment for new and existing projects with environmental benefits. Commence the implementation of the Extended Producer Responsibility Program. The EPR program is a statutory provision in the various national environmental regulations. The regulations were developed pursuant to sections 25 of the NESG Act 2007, which stipulates that regulations must be made for the purpose of protecting public health, promotion of sound environmental sanitation, and protection of the environment. It also requires industry and business to implement the Extended Producer Responsibility Program. Committed to end regular gas flaring. Developed a national policy on solid waste management that supports the principles of circular economy. Developed waste-to-wealth entrepreneurship program for the empowerment of the most vulnerable group, precisely youth and women. Put in place a national plastic waste recycling program aimed at establishing at least one plastic recycling plant in each of the 774 local government areas in the country. Put in place a community-based waste management program that encourages the involvement of local communities in modern waste management practices, such as waste sorting, segregation, composting, and recycling. Developed draft national policy on plastic waste management, which also addresses the issue of plastic life cycle management. Of course, this draft policy is expected to be approved by the Federal Executive Council before the end of this year. Developed a draft national policy on e-waste management, which is also expected to be approved by the Federal Executive Council. Commenced a study on alternative packaging materials to plastic in collaboration with United Nations Industrial Development Organization, UNIDO. We have also been promoting the use of renewable energy resources, established the Great Green Wall Initiative to strengthen the resilience of the people and natural system with sound ecosystem management, sustainable development of land resources, and the protection of rural heritage and improvement of the living conditions of the local populations. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me end this address by stating that there is no sure way of enjoying tomorrow than tendering today our environment. Therefore, let us maximize all the opportunities that circular economy has to offer to build a resilient and decarbonized economy in the post-pandemic era. In conclusion, I want to express my appreciation to the organizers of this webinar for inviting me to give the keynote address. I thank you all for your attention and wish you fruitful deliberation. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, the Honorable Minister, Chief Sharon Keza Ebe, represented by Mr. Charles Eke, the Director, Pollution Control, the Federal Ministry of Environment. Thank you so much for those beautiful remarks and indeed keynote address. That has indeed set the tone for all that will be discussed strategically today. Interestingly, among the things you told us is that with circular economy, just looking at waste alone, we'll be able to deal so much on emission GHG. And interestingly, you have told us that robust regulatory framework is critical for sustainable consumption and production pattern. And we're happy that there are policies already be churned out or to be churned out very shortly after the signing of the Federal Executive Council. And interestingly, you had talked about the number of opportunities therein if the private sector in Nigeria comes into this. We hope the private sector are coming into it, and indeed very shortly, a number of the players in the private sector will be telling us what they have been doing. Thank you very much for all those beautiful remarks.
Thank you.
Interestingly, you touched on something, and that thing is said to be a challenge today. And at a time we come, if care is not taken, if we do not do what we should do now, it will be more, the number we will have in the ocean will be more than the number of fishes we have in the ocean. We will listen to somebody who is so passionate about this issue we want to talk about. Plastics. How do we break down silos to combat marine plastic pollution? She is the director, Global Plastic Action Partnership, World Economic Forum. He or she who will be talking to us, and that is Christine Hooves. Christine, please, we're waiting to hear you.
Thank you, Eugene. Thank you for that kind introduction. I'm going to share my screen. I've got a few slides that will help us have a conversation. So without further ado, thank you again, Eugene, and good afternoon. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Excellencies, for the invitation to join you today. And really thank you for those very wonderful remarks in the keynote that really helped to put together the need for these important activities and the framework that can help us to deliver a circular economy on plastics. It's always an honor to be associated with and to speak alongside such distinguished panelists and with the leadership of the NESG. The forum remains and always will be committed to collaboration with Nigeria on the topic of the circular economy. And in particular, I want to thank the director, Charles Eka, because that was incredible remarks, and he's shown great leadership along with the director and the minister in the circular economy. So as Eugene has already pointed out, I am Kristen Hughes, the director of the Global Plastic Action Partnership, a public-private platform hosted at the World Economic Forum focused on eradicating plastic waste and pollution. As many of you know already, we are facing a critical, urgent global environmental crisis in relation to plastic waste and pollution in the ocean. If we take no action under the business as usual scenario, we will not be able to come out of this in a positive light. And as Eugene already mentioned, a wonderful statistic and a dire one that explains that by 2050, it's quite possible there could be more fish than, more plastic than fish in the ocean. So if we move on, you see some of these statistics of the global plastic that's been produced throughout the 1950 to 2015. And the difficulty here, what we see is there's a significant issue that we're facing globally and locally to address the issue of plastic waste and pollution. The amount that was sent directly to landfill versus the amount that has ever been recycled since that time. And whilst recycling is preferable, we recognize, and I know Clem is on today from Coca-Cola and can share with us some of the amazing technologies in bottle-to-bottle recycling. But even then, a lot of these plastics are probably not able to be recycled many times. So what can we do with them, and how can we create a circular economy for the longevity of that plastic item? And as Mr. Akar also explained, COVID-19 has only exacerbated the situation. We have seen an increase in plastic use in a very positive way, because we need the plastic to help us fight the pandemic. It helps us to support clean approaches and to be safe for masks, gloves, PPE, and other very necessary items for us in this situation. However, it also brings to light the need for even greater action to be addressing this very important issue. We also understand, and it's great, again, so wonderful to be with all of you today, to be talking about these very important issues. We look at the amount of, Nigeria is not alone, let's be very honest. This is a situation we're dealing with all over the globe. But what is so impressive is how Nigeria is rising up and embracing this as an issue, as an opportunity that actually Nigeria is leading on so many fronts within the circular economy, and you recognize the need to address these very important and critical issues like marine litter. So many of the people around the table today and listening in do not need an education on what the circular economy is, but it helps us to recognize that it is a system where products and services are traded in closed loops or cycles. And as has already been explained, we want to really break the take, use, dispose approach. And in particular in plastics, how can we actually create a much more loop-focused approach such that these items are much more used, are recovered, are sorted, are recycled, and are brought back to society in a very positive way. One of our close partners, Ellen MacArthur Foundation, describes the principles of the circular economy as to design pollution and waste out of the system, to keep material and products in use at a very optimal level, and to build and restore natural capital and regenerative natural systems. So how can we utilize the materials that we already see as important and imperative to our everyday life, but also that we can bring them back to society in a very positive way that's not so destructive? The circular economy, therefore, requires fundamental changes across multiple systems. This is not just a one person, one system, one organization. This is why someone like the Global Plastic Action Partnership came to life, to bring together the public sector, the private sector, and civil society, because these are not problems that can be addressed by an individual company, an individual country in isolation. It requires fundamental systemic change where everybody plays a role. Nigeria is embracing the circular economy and supporting opportunities to work with business and government alike in promoting these. The World Economic Forum is proud to be a strategic partner of the African Circular Economy Alliance and to support its mission to spur Africa's transformation to a circular economy that delivers economic growth, jobs, and positive environmental outcomes. Nigerian Honorable Minister of Environment, Dr. Mohammed Mahmoud Akdubar, is a founding co-chair of this alliance and has shown great leadership in helping us to think through ways that we can build in great resilience and to build out a circular economy across the board. You see here on the slide, the e-waste embracing that the country has already shown is something that we can take on board and look to learn from in the space of plastics. So the forum believes that the Alliance plays a vital role in advocacy, sharing of best practices and accelerating high impact projects on the continent. And we will continue to support Nigeria and the other co-chairs in this endeavor. So a little bit about the Global Plastic Action Partnership. We were created by a coalition of public and private allies to address the challenge of plastic waste and pollution. And through our inclusive multi-stakeholder platform, we're uniquely equipped to bring together the public, the private, civil society, academia, and others to help develop joint solutions to the plastic pollution crisis that are both pragmatic and also ambitious. We work at both the global and the national level. We take a very similar approach to both of these, but slightly different. And at the national level, we take a lot of learnings on board that helps support the global. So we see this as something that's very locally owned, locally driven, and along with the way we're all understanding the issues of waste, something that absolutely must be locally implemented. At both the global and the national levels, we deliver change in 3 key areas. We convene communities and curate conversations. We generate new insights and develop action roadmaps. And we catalyze strategic financing for high potential solutions. GPAP is currently in 3 countries, but we're looking to build out additional partnerships. And we recognize that it's very important to work with leaders who are already paving the way and to build with them these strategic thinking. And we see an incredible opportunity to partner with the leading voices in Nigeria, to learn from you, to learn with you, and to build something absolutely incredible with you. We see huge potential in utilizing public-private partnerships to amplify the impact of the circular economy agenda on the continent, in the country, and globally. And in particular, we look to support small businesses and the informal sector. One of the key priorities of the World Economic Forum's Regional Action Group for Africa is unlocking the circular economy opportunities. And one of those, as I'm sure Clem will speak to, is around PET plastics packaging in Africa, and the work stream that Coca-Cola Company is already a founding member and is championing through this space. We see plastic waste as not just one of the biggest challenges, but one of the greatest opportunities in Africa, the continent, and beyond. There can be a sustainable plastics movement, and we can find ways to unlock the circular economy for plastics as we look to the industry, the government, and others to help identify ways to reduce, recycle, and reuse plastic packaging effectively and efficiently. There are already loads of big strides being taken and made in this space, and we're looking to work with you and to work with others to really build out and improve the comparable rates around the other nations that we can work with. In the food and beverage industry, we've seen that this bottle-to-bottle recycling is already very resilient. And we know that during COVID-19, while recycling for many other materials declined significantly, there actually was a greater opportunity to take on the PET bottle recycling. So in my final slide, we'll talk about these opportunities through collaborative partnerships. the Forum and our partners are exploring supportive new and innovative financing models, such as asset recycling, blended finance, and credit enhancement to really support Africa's capital markets. We're already seeing work that can come out of the partnership we have in Ghana around financing task force and a financing roadmap that will help to mobilize financing in a positive way. And we're absolutely certain that we can see such in Nigeria as well. In addition to the Coca-Cola company, Dow is also a founding member of the Global Plastic Action Partnership. They're a very active supporter of the circular economy in Africa, and in particular in Nigeria. They recently launched a pilot to keep 300 million plastic sachets out of the environment by partnering with local recycling businesses and the business school in Lagos. We are inspired by what can happen, the energy and the spirit and the determination of the Nigerian leadership. We would be thrilled to build a partnership with you to create a national plastic action partnership together in Nigeria, to collaborate on the circular economy and together drive impact. Thank you, distinguished ministers, ladies and gentlemen, for this opportunity to join you today. And I look forward to furthering our discussions and building on all of the insights that we gather. Thank you.
Christy, thank you so much for that brilliant presentation and for helping us to understand that in this journey, the World Economic Forum is a partner in helping Nigeria succeed. Thank you very much, and for emphasizing that multiple system is required for all of us to achieve the transformative impact and scalability that we all need. And from what you have said, there is need for fundamental re-engineering of how we work on all of these things. Thank you very much. And for that to happen, again, you also talked about the support that is required from the private sector. And indeed, generally, you talk about plastics. Could it also be that even here in Nigeria, there are people who are utilizing plastics for one thing or the other? Are they already doing that? Could they include that as part of their system? In practical terms, what are we doing in circular economy here? We will want to listen to a topic that says managing waste through co-processing technology. It's based on the principle of circular economy. To give us this presentation is the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, Lafarge Africa PLC, Mr. Khalid Al-Dokhani. He will be represented by Mr. Daniel Adedoku, who is the head GeoCircle Lafarge Africa. Mr. Adedoku, could you move closer? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Eugene. I'll share my slide titled Circular Economy Managing Waste Through Co-Processing Cement Industry. Cement industry is known for opportunities in the high temperature kiln that we run. Cement is made by heating raw material to 1,450 degrees. And at that temperature, it means there are opportunity in it that we can tap in the cement industry. And that's why we're looking at this technology within the cement industry, because looking at the global waste challenge, that we can see over 4 billion tons of waste are generated year by year. And these waste are consuming our lands, which can be used for agricultural or for other development. And so we believe that within our own industry, we can put this contribution. Now we can see that plastic waste, like Christine said, is actually a big menace all over the world at the moment. And the landfill are contributing greatly to greenhouse emission. So it means we need, each industry need to find their own space to contribute into this. And so for cement industry, we talk about co-processing. Co-processing generally refers to what we call simultaneous recycling of mineral material and recovery of energy within a single industrial process. Because of the high temperature, we discover that the mineral part of waste can actually be incorporated into cement. When you look at cement, it's basically limestone, which is basic chemistry we learn in secondary school of calcium carbonate, clay, and iron. So which means most waste we also found in the society contain this, and this can easily be replaced part of the raw material that we have in cement industry. And so the good opportunity in cement industry that 100% of waste that we input into cement making is definitely recovered without producing any additional residue. And so for co-processing, we can actually replace most of the energy needs and most of the raw material to recover them in the cement making process. And this technology is recognized by Basel Convention. So it's not just new. This has been developed. It's over 40 years now within the industry. One other good thing co-processing do is that it promotes circular economy, because we are then dealing with waste. And within that space, we believe waste that we cannot recycle can actually be waste we can recycle, yeah, should go for recycling. But the one that cannot be recycled can actually be used. And because it promotes circular economy, it means it opens up opportunity, open up new industry within the waste management hierarchy to drive this opportunity. Additional advantage we have is that it mitigates climate change impact. I mean, cement is highly capitalized energy industry with consumption of fuel in any form, gas, low sulfur oil, coal in the industry, which means we can substitute most of this with waste that we can convert into energy. And this will give us the opportunity to actually drive that. It helps us to conserve energy and material that we can use for other resources. Like, for example, Nigeria, I mean, one thing I always say to people, we are struggling with power in this nation. It means gas that we use in cement industry can actually be channeled into power production, you know, to support that initiative, and cement can move into other, what I would say, energy that we can easily use within the sector. And the other advantage cement industry is bringing to us in the co-processing is that mostly cement industry are built to produce cement. So it means the investment, the capex to convert it to co-processing is lower than building a typical incinerator or building a landfill. I mean, our nation, we don't really have landfill in Nigeria. I mean, that's why I put in a fourth picture there. You can see uncontrolled dump site, which is the same we have all over the place in Nigeria. And with this, most of our waste are not recycled, no energy is recovered, and with it, we have all sorts of pollution. So if we imbibe this within our own economy and cement industry start contributing its own quota, it may will be part and parcel of the solution. Definitely won't be completely, we won't solve the problem completely, but we'll take part of the junk away from our dump site today. And it gives us that opportunity. So the waste challenge, like Christina said, is huge, especially from plastics. I mean, I'll show us some pictures here. And we say it's a waste, a blessing, and a curse. It depending on which side of the strata you are. I mean, if somebody is dumping waste behind your own house, which we've seen everywhere here, it becomes a curse. We see waste in the drainages. Rain, when it rains, flooding everywhere because the drainages are blocked. But if you are the owner of compactor collecting waste, you see it as a blessing. But then if we are just collecting waste and dumping it in the landfill, it's actually not a blessing. But if you are within the system that you are generating opportunity, creating opportunity within that space, having an industrial system, either recycling, co-processing, then it can turn a new business opportunity where we create a lot of jobs. You can see this picture I'm showing you, go to a typical sawmilling, that's what you see. And at the end of the day, they put fire on it, because in our nation today, we don't really have a lot of usage for this. But these are excellent opportunity we can tap on, which I will show you what we do within the Lafarge sector to see the opportunity we can create. You can see pollution in oil area. We have issue in our Niger Delta today because of this, and I know United Nations Environmental Protection with our Nigerian government is supporting the cleaning of Ogoni land. But the question sometimes is, after cleaning, what do we do with the waste that will be generated? To me, I think that's a question we still need to ask ourselves. So in co-processing, it's easier to talk about co-processing, but a lot of people do not understand. And thanks for the Honorable Minister of State talking about EPR. The greatest challenge in waste conversion is who pays for it. Because today we don't actually sort out waste. Waste come raw. It means the waste need to be prepared to be able to be used as fuel. I'm talking today from cement industry perspective, but I know, I visited a country where I can see waste being used to generate power, waste being used to run boiler, to generate steam. So which means the opportunity about, but we need to process this waste. So waste on itself cannot just be used. And that's why I showed this typical picture here. You can see waste, you can see a pre-processing system, and you can see it converting to fuel. And the challenge is, if nobody is paying for this, then nobody actually wants to invest. And that's why we need to all work together as an organization, as the country, the private sector, the regulator, to make sure that we create this opportunity that will create jobs and that will also take away waste from our society. If I look at Lagos, for example, or major cities in Nigeria, we virtually don't have a space to put waste in the city. So what next? So that's the question. And if we answer that question, how do we prepare this? How do we process this waste to what can be used? And that challenge, we need to answer it, and we need to provide opportunity. So to me, you can see a typical thing here. Waste can come in any form, but at the end of the day, it needs to be homogeneous, to be useful for any industry, so that the industry can continuously producing their main product without impacting the quality of the product. So these are opportunities that can abound. And so if you look at circular economy within Lafarge Holcim Group, for which we are represented as Lafarge Africa in the country, we see on our sustainability platform, we drive 4 key actions, which is climate and energy, circular economy, environment and community. Today, I look at the first 2, climate and energy. Under climate, we look at impact of reducing CO2 emission. And for cement industry, CO2 comes from both the raw material and the fuel, because your raw material contains calcium carbonate, which you need to heat up to release the CO2. So the only way we start combating that impact is by reducing our use of fossil fuel. And so when we look at 2018, for example, worldwide, we consume about 52 million tons of waste, replacing just about 18% of our energy need. Out of this 52 million, Nigeria, last year, we consumed in Lafarge around 90,000 tons of waste to replace our energy. And so we are driving this, and to make sure that we are creating this opportunity. And the 90,000 tons to us is almost 1.2 billion naira, both material preparation and logistics. So when you look at this, it's not cheap. So which means we all need to come together to make sure that this creates the opportunity for us. And so you can see this at the height of our own activity, that we drive this to make sure that we create the opportunity, and we're also leading the pack to show other industry that this is feasible, and this we can do. So before I hand up my discussion, I mean, circular economy definitely means we're looking at not just a product life cycle that end up somewhere in the landfill. We're looking at cradle to cradle, where the end of one product makes the beginning of the other one. And that's what all circular economy is all about. And so we see that it promotes, from our own terms, within the geocircle business. By the way, geocircle is the arm of Lafarge business, 100% owned, that look at waste management incorporation into cement making. Because cement is a technology well known, so the group created what we call geocircle, which is also doing a lot of research and development of use of waste in cement industry. And so this will look at zero waste picture, and we are promoting this within our industry and with a lot of other companies. So if you look at our model, I mean, this is a typical model I put here, where you see cement industry at the center. We are producing cement material for building, and our idea is building a better cities. In building a better city, you are looking at a city with less waste. Waste you are incorporating to use as either raw material, or you are getting energy from it, and you are reducing your CO2 emission by reducing your waste. And also, because we can also use a lot of biomass material, we will promote development in agriculture, because you create a new industry. People discover that because I can use the agricultural waste, it encourages production of agriculture, because they make some fund within the agricultural sector. You know, so you can take away the cement industry and plug in an industry, and then see what you can do. So within our industry, what have we done? We have created over 1,000 direct and indirect jobs with local agro-processor and plastic people who are collecting plastics. We spent almost 5 billion in the last 4 years for just material alone, and we are supporting the cleaning of non-recyclable plastic within our local community. Thank God I have Ugochi here from Coca-Cola. We've been working together on a program with LBRA where we are collecting plastics. So today, a lot of plastic comes to our plants in Ewekoro, where we are co-processing within our cement industry. And in terms of investment, in the last 4 years, we've spent almost $10 million investing in co-processing technology within our cement making. Today, I talk about we consume about 90,000 tons last year. The project we are commissioning before the pandemic is almost 7 million project that will consume about 200,000 tons of waste within the next 1 year. Thank you very much. So to me, we are promoting this within the country, and I believe opportunity abound for a lot of things we can do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Adedokun. Thank you so much for all those beautiful opportunities you have highlighted in waste management value chain. Thank you so much. At least being able to convert, bring energy out of it, utilizing the temperature opportunities that you people have in the cement industry. Thank you very much for helping us to mop up the waste that we have literally here and there, and the opportunities that you people have created for some other stakeholders. In fact, to let you know that there are opportunities, we have recognized that there's a challenge across the world. Economies are recovering. How can we recover following this model? The person to help us understand this had actually supported in helping organizations that needed recovery to recover and put them on the path of growth. He seems to have that Midas touch. He will be talking to us on leveraging regenerative models and circular economic principles. He was at the time the managing director, Lagos State Waste Management Authority, and now managing director and co-founder of Globe Tech Remedial Limited. Mr. Ola Oresoya, please, we're waiting to hear you.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, everyone. Jim, can you allow me to share my screen? Can the host allow?
Mr. Adedokun, please, can you pull down your presentation? Okay, thank you. Please go ahead now.
All right, okay, great. So, very good afternoon, everyone, and I'll be as fast as I can be. Okay, I hope you can see the screen now. Eugene, can you confirm?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. So I'll just quickly rush through this and just to talk about the new opportunities that we can leverage on looking at the policy guidelines. So I'll be talking basically from policy initiatives from the public sector end that can actually bring in the economic recovery that we're anticipating and leveraging on the prevalent situations, and in particular the COVID-19 issues, and are there opportunities therein or not? So we need to look into that. So just have that looking at the economic recovery growth and the sustainable development initiatives. Then just one or two case studies that I will go through. Yes, we all have all these structures, and you can see that the initiatives from the public sector end for the economic growth that we're looking at. The initiatives runs through the strategic implementation plan, the economic recovery growth plan for the federal government, and the sustainable development goals. If you listen to Christy very well, Christy talked about the national policy, domesticating the global policy, and being able to develop a national policy that will drive industrial growth. And I think if you look at the national plan, these are the three main areas where the national growth is focused on. And then, but the key thing is to be able to reintegrate this. Yes, we have Oladoku and Christine talked about circular economy, and there are various theories, but the basic principles in the circular economy are well entrenched in the national economic growth and recovery and growth plan. And I think if you look at it, some of those principles focus on the tackling of the constraint of growth, talking about energy and leveraging on power in the private sector to promote national cohesion and social inclusion. Then principles to allow market to function and uphold core values. Then the broad objective is all about restoring growth. And the key thing we are looking at right now is to be able to restore growth, looking at the principles of the regenerative and the circular economic model. If you read through the economic growth plan and the circular economic principles, they are all interwoven, they are all embedded. The social inclusion and job creation principles are all well entrenched in the principles and the objectives for macroeconomic principles, stability, and economic diversity. All are well entrenched in this document. And now, looking at the SDGs, well, and the industrial growth, we have about three key areas: SDG 9 and SDG 11 and 12, talking about industries and innovation and infrastructure, sustainable city and communities, and responsible consumption and production. These are all key factors that you need to look at if you're talking about circular economy and growing your resilience within your framework. You just have to be able to attain the targets based on that goals. And I'm sure most of our goals, like Lafarge was talking about, these are the key areas and the key focus for development in those areas. Now, taking it beyond the linear business model and the circular business model, and now there's a new one, which is the regeneration, all right, the regenerative model. And you can see a kind of linkage between the linear model. Why do we need to go into circular? It's because of the waste generated at the end of the cradle to grave business practices that we're doing before. From production, you end up in the landfill, you dump, and you're not thinking about reintegration. And so people are focused, most industries are focused on a sustainable business development itself. And going to circular economy, just like Oladipo said, yes, we say business, and we can put the cost focus. You can hear us talking about cost, how much we are investing, how much we are investing. So circular economy is looking at, there's still a cost consciousness in making sure that you have the reintegration. And the cost we're talking about there is the waste, putting back the waste into production line. But now, what is regenerative model? For every recycling program that you still do, you still end up with waste. Okay, after every recycling, even if you now put the waste inside a kiln, whatever you do, all right, there's still going to be residual, which is still waste. Then what do you do with that? So it goes on and on, all right, and it can be as circular as you can run many rings, but there's always waste generated between the linear and circular. Then after the circular production, you still have waste there. Now, what we're talking about is looking at the new the ecosystem and the functions on the left-hand side of the screen there. This waste come back to the ecosystem, and this is where the key issue is. They still end up in the ecosystem, even if you recycle your plastic. All right, and I know there are many recycling plants in the state, and after recycling the plastic, you still have a huge volume of waste still there, and they still go back into this ecosystem. So there's a regeneration that you have to do. Regeneration model will give you the intrinsic value to the ecosystem that will ensure the preservation. So it goes on and on. It is just a basic principle. You cannot create nor destroy matter. Matter is just there. You can't destroy it. So after every end of the ring in the circular economy, there's a regeneration that must be factored in, and that's the intrinsic issue that we must look at. Well, for most of us in the circular economy business, we are used to this butterfly by the Elliman Foundation. The butterfly model, the right-hand side on stock management, and the left-hand side on the renewable flow. If you look at most of the operations on the blue line, all right, we go within that our own range, all right, and on the other side, on the green line also, it goes within the ring. So what regeneration model is looking at is to close the loop between the ring and the blue, and make sure that the real circular economy we are talking about, we make it real circular, and not just a half circle that we are doing right now. And that is where the resilience for our business, the new business model comes in. So, and I think that is one of the a key program and where we are going and where we are shifting. Let me just use this model, and which is the regenerative model in the beauty industry. Typical beauty industry, and you can just see the flow, and the link between the left side and the right side is the waste. Okay, no matter what you do, no matter how circular you go from the beer industry, all right, the water you exploit, and everything you do, you end up with waste, and the waste goes back into the same ecosystem. So the eco balance, it is the key thing that will ensure the resilience. No matter how you do it, you end up with waste. And what are the key things? Now, we're looking at what lessons we learned in COVID, and how do we go from here into the resilience for new business model after COVID? Well, there's a need for a redesign of our business model, no doubt about it, because the ecosystem remains. No matter whether we have lockdown or lock up, the ecosystem remains. And the ecosystem, the ecology, the system is asking for our attention. So our business model should be broader, beyond our products, all right? We need to have a broader view beyond our products and have a more model and products to look at. Just like Lafarge is talking about energy production right now. Yes, we need to expand beyond our narrow model and review our business scope, all right, and not the business scale in itself. So it's the scope of the business that we do. We need to mark the green and the blue line together and not just be encased in our blue line only. So the business focus will give more attention to biomedical and medical products as an integral component of the ecosystem, which we are all learning right now. If your business is not looking at healthcare or preventive healthcare program, you are not yet complete. That's the thing, the new normal, which is the unusual thing that we've all learned now. Now, talking about the single plastic, just like Christine has said, Christine gave us the staggering value, which is 5 billion tons of plastic globally. I'm sure we have more than that right now. With the higher levels of high volume of plastic that was generated during the COVID-19, our home delivery packages are in the single-use plastic, and it is rising. So we're only recycling 9%. What do we do with the remaining? So it's a key for us to learn from, and that the new model of regeneration will take care of that. So there's increasing healthcare regeneration, and that is one key area. Now we're all used to this hierarchy, the pyramid of prevention, which is the most desirable aspect of it. How do we prevent? It's preventing, just like I'll still leverage, and I'm sure Orlando will not mind me to still refer to the presentation he gave. From Lafarge, must continue to produce. So there is a kind of waste they cannot prevent. There is other ones they can prevent. So now there must be ways that we produce. Now, if the cost, all right, cost of energy, okay, for Lafarge and the rest of it, we compare Lafarge to look for alternative energy. And that is why all alternatives from waste, from plastic must come in. So disposal is at the lower ebb of it. But there's a new system that is going on that most of us have been witnessing, and I think that led to the new policy in Ogun State recently about the law compelling industries not to sell waste. All right. By the time there is nothing that compels you to prevent waste, you still make money even at the point of disposal. All right. And most industries now see income coming in from selling of what they are discarding of. Then there is no incentive to make it to prevent the waste. And we found out that during the COVID-19, the capital flight, there are a lot of things we can invest in locally. Most of the raw material we can get locally, we invest for them outside the country. And most of the multinationals, especially, are guilty of this. Many of the raw materials we can use locally, they import them. Drilling industry, all industries, you have a drilling mud called the bentonite. You have a lot of bentonite in Nigeria. I wonder why we keep on importing bentonite. I think that should be looked into. There is no reason why we should bring in bentonite into the country. There is no reason why we should bring in milk into the country. So these are the capital flights we need to address for investment. And now, regenerative project, milk industry, you don't have any reason why we cannot, why people in a dairy product cannot invest in ranching and the people producing milk product and the rest of it. So these are the regiments that we need to build in. And what we compare this, I think the public sector will have to take care of this, because I'm speaking to the public sector right now because it's a policy issue that will drive all this compliance. So we need to domesticate research findings. Most of our industries are not investing in research findings locally. We would rather invest in the foreign research, and we let all our universities. So most of the universities here, they need to travel out to go and research, do the same business. If you have a company in Nigeria, and it is a foreign body that is investing in Nigeria to come over there to research, and the research findings are not domesticated. So there's a capital flight that is going on in all this. So we need to do this for our global competitiveness, and we need to regenerate our ERGP into the new rolling plan, which is a very good one. And target model set. A typical example, I think maybe Smith will talk more about this. Netherlands is having complete circular economy by 2050, which is the national target that they've actually set for themselves. So I think just to get to this so that for more discussion, in conclusion, in all this, right, and I think what we're talking about is that there's a need for consciousness from industries about damaging their products and services due to the larger society. All right, it's not just about profit here; it's about responsibility to the ecosystem, and I think that is what the model of regenerative model is talking about. What is our responsibility? How much of the ecosystem are we preserving? How much of it are we preserving? The money we make from the packaging of our drinks, the plastic that we use for packaging your drinks, the packaging there, it covers almost 50% of the cost the customers are paying. We need to reinvest that 50% of the cost back into the society, and not now to be now selling the same thing. We now start selling the product, the waste again to the public. We shouldn't be doing that. We should not be selling the waste again. Rather than there should be a compelling law that gives us a reason why the 60% of the packaging cost that you have taken should go back to the ecosystem. It's compelling. And I think that we need to look into that for responsible production. Then every industry must make their waste stream available for analysis. And analysis does not mean it's going to be a body. It's going to be a resource for you. And there's a resource in the sense that, yes, we now look at it on how to be responsible for it. If only you can now invest in a company that will use your own waste product, not that we now take the waste product and now sell it. The kind of resource we look at is that we now sell our waste and we now make money. There's no incentive to reduce your waste when you are making money from sale. And that narrative must change. And that is what the new model tells us, that we need to look at how to reduce our waste and not to turn it into money-making venture. All right. Now, the industry's commitment to further investment in ecosystem concern beyond the product, and we guarantee the second line of production as is needed in the support of the desired growth plan. Most of the profits that we are making, we need to deploy them into the secondary line of production within our system. Not that we now push them out and somebody else is now using those plastics and we don't care what happens to those plastics. We should care for it. Whatever you are producing as your waste is your resource that must be well cared for. So there's a self-sufficiency need, which COVID-19 has taught all of us, and that there's a need for diversion and responsible production. The end-to-end investment, I'm still waiting to see, and I'm just planning, probably we'll talk more about this, when we are going to have the bottle-to-bottle production here in Nigeria. We are lucky we have a kind of a World Bank approval for the company in Nigeria to do that.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. So I think I'll rather round up there, and I want to believe that Michelle's gone through this model, and I'm sure Clem, by the time we talk, will do more justice to this. So let's think analytically and be the master of the nature and not just the, we should think analytical thinking is not the master, but the servant to nature's intelligence. Thank you all. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Olaore, for that. We will move on quickly because our time is far taken. Mrs. Merinda Amakri, who will be talking to us on circular economy and extended producer responsibility, unlocking new business opportunities as part of managing the crisis we have seen ourselves today. Mrs. Amakri.
Thank you very much. I want to just quickly start by saying that one of the ways of promoting circular economy is through the implementation of the Extended Producer Responsibility Program. EPR is an environmental protection strategy that has the objective of total decrease environmental impact of a product from a life cycle management approach. We've heard so much about that. Essentially, this transfers the burden of waste management from government to the generators. Generators, those are the producers, those who in the first place made that product and they are obliged to take it back. The federal government has made it compulsory for producers to take back products when they get to their end. The Nigerian system of the EPR is driven by the Producer Responsibility Organization model. This is in line with the international best practices, and it's an industry-led approach hinged on government-private business relationship. This model provides investment opportunities. It provides investment opportunities in the waste value chain in building environmental resilience against future challenges. As government, operational guidelines for the EPR has been developed since 2014. These guidelines delineate responsibilities for key sector players. The sector players include the producers, the consumers, the collectors, recyclers, and the producer responsibility organizations, government and consumers as well. The guidelines explains the modalities for the implementation of the EPR program and the target waste streams such as used batteries, electronic waste, plastic, tires, all the waste systems. So now we look at COVID-19 issue and the need for circular economy. The pandemic, yeah, it has brought its attendant problems and also opened up new ways of doing things. Trade barrier due to the lockdown has shown that the need to look inwards is very relevant for raw materials in view of the shortages of manufacturing and supply chain. This has also demonstrated that circular economy strategy is the most comprehensive way to rise above the crisis, to reshape our production and consumption patterns, to build the much needed resilience in our system. For Nigeria, we seem to have been a bit prepared to strengthen local production chains and capacity to manufacture locally to avoid over-reliance on imports for raw material by facilitating the implementation of the EPR program. The implementation of the program commenced with the 3 waste streams, the e-waste, plastics, and batteries. And we are looking into moving to waste tires, paper, metal in subsequent years, hopefully from next year. Currently, the agency is carrying out a pilot project for the e-waste in Lagos, supported by the Global Environment Facility and United Nations Environment Program, UNEP. Now, looking at unlocking investment opportunities through public-private partnership as part of COVID-19 co-crisis management, we see that the structure of the EPR administration, the model in Nigeria, is driven by the Producer Responsibility Organization. This presents investment opportunities with a lot of earning potentials for skilled and unskilled laborers. The informal sectors involved in the process also have opportunities to upgrade their system. The investment opportunities abound in establishment of recycling plants, machineries, innovations, and designs, information technology and data management, among others. For example, some innovative applications from recovered plastics has brought about road construction, production of interlocking tiles, art and crafts, production of bed covers, production of granules as raw materials for other plastic products, such as footwears. We have carrier bags. We have face shields these days being produced from caps, PET bottle caps. We also have production of fuel using pyrolysis. We heard of what Lafarge presented regarding their waste to energy. All these processes abound, and we have these opportunities in place. And I want to also say that the implementation of the program, in conclusion, it holds a lot of promise for smooth takeoff of circular economy in Nigeria. The EPR model in Nigeria is hinged on public-private partnership that will provide lots of investment and job opportunities for our unemployed youth and the vulnerable group, women and children. This also secures the country by building a resilient society against hindrance in the free flow of raw materials across borders in the event of any crisis. I want to say thank you to the organizers of this program for inviting NESG and for sharing our insight into what we are doing regarding the EPR and the circular economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Amakri, again, for throwing so much light on what the government is doing through the EPR program and indeed through NESG. Thank you so much. We will not, we will move on quickly again. Like we said, in terms of practice, what is happening, and that is what we have been listening to. And we want to listen yet to another. Realizing the circular economy, how the private sector is reshaping the business environment in Nigeria. To talk to us on this is the Public Affairs and Communication Director, West African Business Unit, Coca-Cola Nigeria Limited, Mr. Claire Ugoju. Mr. Ugoju, please. Yeah, thanks. Thanks very much, Eugene. I just want to check so you can see my screen. Is it okay? Yes, very well. It's bright, except perhaps you need to put it on the slideshow. And while you are doing that, participants, please, if you have to, kindly share with us via the chat and the Q&A box, please. Thank you very much. All right, thank you very much, Eugene. I just want to acknowledge the organizers and thank you for the opportunity to speak for the private sector and of course, show what we're doing at Coca-Cola. And I also want to thank all the previous speakers, for the very valid comments they've made. I think we have been partners in different areas, as most of them have said. And so this is actually, a gathering of partners, in this same objective. Very briefly, I think, the challenge around waste pollution is something that is very real to us. We all know how overwhelming it has been for our governments and our municipal authorities and other waste managers. But I think the point that we need to point out is that waste pollution is beyond plastics. As we can see all around us, there is a whole lot of materials, that are contributing to that. And so when we talk about, a sustainable solution to this challenge, I think we need to be very inclusive and ensure that we have our eyes, across all sectors so that we can have a solution that will really deliver we can have, solutions that can deliver what we expect to get at the end of the day. The circular economy, like we all know, I think a lot has been said about it. There's size. I think it is way to go. If there is anything COVID has taught us, it is the fact that our lifestyles and the way we've done things, cannot carry us far. I think it's shown us that the challenge around climate control, climate change, and all of those things are real, and anything can happen and everything can come to a standstill. And what that means is that we need to think seriously around the issue of waste. What can we do? And I think it has been said, there's need for everyone to come together.
I'm not.
We can't hear you again.
I think it was okay.
Mr. Godju, we can't hear you. Perhaps maybe you take off your video. Let's improve the bandwidth.
They shouldn't be wasting this much time.
Yeah, you are back now. Mute. Just unmute yourself, sir. So oftentimes, the concept of circular economy seems to be like a mystery, but I think the truth is that we've all been living with it for a very long time. Okay, we all know about the returnable glass bottles, whether it's Coca-Cola, whether it's 7-Up, whether it is Mirinda or Fanta. These bottles, are returned, to the producer.
Sorry, would you want to share your screen again? Would you want to share your slides again? It's gone. Smith, check your private message, please.
Can you see it now?
Yes, I can see it now. Look,
okay.
Perhaps on the slideshow. Yeah, good.
So like I was saying, circular economy is not new. It's something that we've been practicing like we do with the glass bottles. We all know they are returnable and they are recyclable and they go back to the business. The same thing too with cans. There's a lot of cans that are used for beverages and for other applications, but we don't see them on the road. Similarly as well, the private sector has also been recycling the effluent water that is used in production.
And this water is cleaned up and made in a way that it is safe for the environment and returns to the environment. And I believe that these are examples of, the circular economy that we can build upon, so that we do not think that, we have to do something that is completely different from what we've been doing. What I've tried to do here is to give an idea of, the various beverage packaging materials that we have and what are the prospects that they have for the circular economy. And as we can see here, the glass bottle is already fully circular, okay? There is a full circularity of the glass bottle as we have seen. And for the various other materials, there are different areas of challenges that we still face. For instance, for the cans is a single-use packaging. The beverage cartons, which is like the Tetra Pak cartons, are single-use. The PET is single-use. But there is a new PET technology that is not exactly very new, but is also coming up, which is called the RefPET, or the refillable PET, which can be refilled and reused by the businesses without necessarily breaking them down and recycling them. And I think, as you can see here, the green, tells us that these things are currently available in Nigeria. The yellow lines show us that these are emerging. And, the red ones tell us, where there is opportunity for us, to work even harder. One thing that I'd like to clarify here is the fact that the domestic recycling capacity, being able to recycle materials locally, is going to be the biggest opportunity we have to solve the problem. The other thing that, has been talked about by Mrs. Amakri is the fact that, regulations are in place. And I think one of the biggest regulations that Nigeria successfully brought about last year was the standard for PET bottle recycling. And what that means is that there is a standard now that we can use to recycle the PET bottles back into bottles, and the industry can use them again. This is a phenomenal development, because what it does is that it creates a big market locally. Okay, once we can find investors who can invest in this and begin to recycle the bottles locally, that the beverage companies can buy back, and reuse. And that is going to be a game changer as far as recycling in Nigeria is concerned. Now, one of the best examples around, the model of circular economy and industry collaboration with other stakeholders is in South Africa, where the industry coalition that is called PETCO has successfully implemented this since the last 18 years, from 2002. And you can see on the graph here, the level of growth, that collection and recycling of PET bottles have achieved in South Africa. Today, South Africa is recycling over 60% of their PET bottles. And this is much more than what you find in many European countries. And the industry has been able to make this possible through different areas of interventions that they have brought to play within the value chain. And I think for us in Nigeria, this is where the Industry Alliance in Nigeria is also headed. One of the things we need to understand is for companies to really, latch onto the circular economy, there needs to be a very strong internal commitment and ensuring that the circular economy objectives are aligned to the business goals. This is not philanthropy. This is not CSR. The companies have got to believe in the challenges that the environment faces and sees the environment as the sustainer of its own business. In other words, if there is no environment, there is no business. And I think that is the level of commitment that is required. For us in Coca-Cola, we have a global commitment we call the World Without Waste. It's a vision to say that in the next, by 2030, we will be waste neutral as far as our products and our packaging is concerned. And there are three main commitments that we have made. One is that we will design our packaging to achieve recyclability, 100%. And we will use 50% of recycled content for all our packaging materials by 2030. We've also committed to collect, the equivalent of the packaging waste that we put out there. And of course, we recognize that we can't do this alone as a company. We must partner with other organizations. We must partner with all stakeholders. And there are partnerships at global levels, at regional levels, and at national levels, that we have seen. But making a commitment is one thing. The other thing is, what have we done about this commitment? And what we see here is the status as at, 2019, last year. Globally, we have achieved 88% recyclable rate. And I'm happy to say that in Nigeria, we are even above the global rate at 99% of recyclability of all our packaging materials. Globally, in terms of recycled content use, We are globally at 20%, but in Nigeria, we are at 33% because of the heavy volume of glass bottles, that we see in our trade. One area where there is opportunity for us in Nigeria is in the area of rPET, the use of recycled PET bottles for our production purposes. The reason why we are at 0% in Nigeria is because we have said to ourselves that we will not import recycled PET from other markets, okay? Our commitment is to ensure that we help to develop the local recycling of PET bottles in Nigeria, which we can use back into our production. And that is what we're working very stringently with every stakeholder to ensure that that happens. In terms of collection, whether it is PET, whether it is glass bottles or cans, globally we're at 60%, and in Nigeria we're at 37%. So basically, Nigeria is trending very well, and this is not a program that we are implementing in developed countries. No, this is a global commitment that we are committed to making sure that we implement across the world. Now, and we have not just started today, okay? As far as Coca-Cola is concerned, our journey with circular economy started in 2005. And I think this is very well known to all the stakeholders on the panel. From 2005, we worked with Alchem. Alchem is the biggest recycler in Nigeria today that is recycling the PET bottles into fiber for other applications. Now, this is a company that we persuaded to come to set up the recycling operation in Nigeria. And we supported them for a period of 7 years, with subsidies to ensure that they can stabilize their business and be able to operate on their own. The second thing that we have done within this space is bringing the industry together, because we recognize from our experience with Alchem that as Coca-Cola, we can't solve the problem alone. We needed to be able to build a bigger platform, bringing the industry together so that we can do something bigger than what we are doing with Alchem. And today I'm proud to say that, the FBRA is established and recognized by NESG as the producer responsibility organization for the purpose of implementing the EPR in Nigeria. And I'm going to talk, very briefly about, some of the successes that they have achieved in the next few minutes. The third thing we have done is also ensuring that the micro and small and medium players within the collection space, we are able to provide them different kinds of support, including funding, to ensure that they remain in business and that they are able to grow their capacity. And through these interventions, it's been possible to ensure that the industry is coming together to create the framework for the circular economy in Nigeria. Our efforts are not limited in Nigeria. We are also ensuring that we have a regional approach to this. And Christine, from the World Economic Forum talked about this when she was talking. And that is the work that we are doing first with the Africa Plastic Recycling Alliance, which is, and again, a regional industry platform to ensure that companies are committed to the recycling of packaging and the reuse of packaging and the domestic capacity for reproduction and recycling in, our local markets in Africa. And we are doing this together with the World Economic Forum as well as the Africa Circular Economy Alliance. I think these are very important platforms for ensuring that the governments, across the region, the private sector players across the region, the civil society across the region, and of course the international development partners can come together as a multi-stakeholder regional task force to drive, the framework that is necessary for a circular economy. And I think one of those things that can make it easy is to have a regional standard, for the use of recycled bottles, so that if we have a production facility in Nigeria, they can sell to Ghana, they can sell to Cote d'Ivoire, they can sell everywhere. And wherever that kind of facility is established in Nigeria, Africa becomes a market where they can sell the same kind of standard that they have in Europe. And that we believe is going to be very critical in driving success in this area. Back to Nigeria, many of us know about the FBRA. I'm not going to dwell too much on this, but I think the most important thing that we need to highlight here is the fact that the level of commitment is such that despite all the disruptions of COVID in 2020, you can see that there has been a significant growth in the level of collection versus 2019, when there wasn't any kind of disruption of this nature. And as many of the previous speakers have said, there are levels of partnership that is driving this with the collectors, with the Lagos state government, to whom the FBRA has donated about 6 boats to be able to clean up plastic and other waste from the lagoons and other waterways. Lafarge has been a very critical part of the FBRA success, being about the biggest off-taker of the bottles that are collected. And we know that using the bottle for energy is not the classical circular economy outcome that we all expect. But given the challenges where Nigeria is now, it is a pragmatic approach to ensure that we can at least continue to make progress, pending when there is domestic recycling capacity that can take us to where we want to be. And of course, policy advocacy has been very important. I talked about the approval standard for the recycled PET regulation. This has been made possible by the cooperation of NESG, cooperation of SOM, cooperation of NAFDAC, and of course, driven by FBRA with technical support from companies like Coca-Cola. Now, one of the things, like I said earlier, is the fact that the approval of the national standard on RPET is going to be a game changer for all of us. Because what that has done is that it is encouraging investors to now come into Nigeria and invest in the recycling of PET bottles back into PET bottles. Now, this is one of the potential investors that has become public knowledge, and of course has secured about $39 million from IFC and the International Development Agency to be able to build that plant. So these are very credible prospects that we have in the country. There are about 3 other prospects who have gone very far in terms of their investment decisions, but I would respect their privacy and not name them in this forum. But the most important thing is to look at the big picture and the kind of opportunity that this will create for us. The ability to collect and recycle large-scale volumes of PET, which previously are being exported. But of course, we all know that with China banning export, with COVID and with the economic recession, the export sector is completely closed. And that means that we have to deal with our plastics by ourselves. And that is why this particular development is going to be a game changer as far as collection and recycling of PET bottles are concerned in Nigeria. And so in conclusion, the question is, what is the imperatives for us to accelerate progress? What are the things that we need to do? And I think it's very important, like we said earlier, that companies need to be committed to this beyond CSR. And it is not just about beverage companies and those that are involved in plastic. Okay, the oil companies have a responsibility to take responsibility for the oil sales. Okay, somebody did ask a question, what happens to those kind of sales that can be recycled? There has to be a way of dealing with them. Every sector must come together like the beverage sector has come together under FBRA to chart a pathway for them to be able to create progress. Stakeholders, government, private sector, civil society, this is not the time to blame blames. Oh no, it is the beverage bottles. Oh no, it is this. No, everybody needs to recognize that this is a mutual threat, okay, to our existence, to our environment, and to our way of life. And therefore, we all need to hold. It's also important, for the beverage industries themselves to ensure that they commit to the use of recycled materials, whether it is, bottles that are made into fibers, to make shirts, or, bottles that are recycled, in order to make new bottles. The investors that are coming will need the market to be guaranteed. And therefore, it is important that Coca-Cola, PepsiCo, and every company that operates in this country and uses the PET must commit to the use of the recycled bottles for their operations, even if it is, incrementally more expensive. But the most important thing is to recognize that government also has a role to play. There is need for some policy incentives that can encourage these recyclers. We know that Nigeria and most of Africa are high operating cost environments. But then, the companies that are coming to operate in this must be globally competitive. Because if their pricing is significantly higher than what can be bought at the global level, then it becomes a big problem. Ghana, for instance, has approved a 7-year tax holiday for investors who are recycling locally and investing in recycling infrastructure. And I think that is something that Nigeria can learn from. It's also very important for us to ensure that this is not something we are going to do haphazardly. Okay? The circular economy requires a very detailed master plan. There is need for a strategic national framework beyond the EPR policy, which is a sub-segment, beyond the National Plastic Management Policy, which is also a sub-segment. We have to have a complete picture on how we are going to drive the circular economy in Nigeria. Again, I want to reference Ghana, which has, which is working with the World Economic Forum and the Global Plastic Action Partnership to develop, a national plastic action plan. I'm a technical committee member of that project, and I can tell you it's an amazing ton of work that is being done, because if you don't have, a holistic view of what you want to achieve, then you'll be running helter-skelter and not be able to achieve more. The other thing is also to ensure that there is capacity building for our regulators. I think it is one thing to have the EPR policy, and Nesria and Mrs. Macri and all of the people working there have done an amazing ton of work over 3 years to develop the EPR policy. But there is need to also strengthen their capacity for implementation and for enforcement. Otherwise, it becomes another piece of policy document that is not creating value for the country. And there is need for us to have a holistic view to say, what are the kind of competencies that are required? Okay, and I think we need to be able to invest in that. And so together, if we're able to deliver on this, then we would have started, on a serious path to achieving the circular economy in Nigeria. And I want to leave us with a final thought, and this is what I say to my colleagues in the industry. Look, we will always compete for market share, okay? That is why we're a company, okay, set up to make profits. But I think it is important that we recognize that in competing for market share, we must also cooperate for social good. Because at the end of the day, the environment and the society in which we play are the things that
thank you very much.
And if we go wrong, then we will lose everything and not be able to make the kind of progress that we need. So this is how the private sector, with Coca-Cola as the industry leader, is helping to drive the circular economy evolution in Nigeria. Thank you very much. And I can make more comments in the question section.
Thank you very much, Mr. Smith. You have been bussed into a corner in terms of timing. So please, with the way it is now, we just have to see how we manage the remaining time. We're supposed to stop this program in 9 minutes time, but we seem to be bussed into a corner now to manage this time in answering the question, a number of questions that have been sent. For now, we leave it to you to quickly talk to us on this area of closing the loop, sustaining urban mining as part of the comprehensive solutions towards circular economy.
Thank you. I just see that for some reason I cannot share my screen, but can you open the PDF, or would you like me to drop out and drop back in quickly, because then it will work? Is someone sharing the screen for me, the PDF? Yes, thank you. Excellent. So you can go to the next slide. I will say next slide every time, and it will go quite fast. So I am Reinhard Smith, and I'm working for Closing the Loop. And we are a company that is doing exactly what Mr. Clem just said, and we are taking the opportunity that is raised for the private sector in the circular economy. We've noticed that if we look at the circular economy, we had various speakers showing the butterfly, the various levels of importance of keeping resources, reuse, that sort of stuff. So if you go to the next slide, you'll see one of the things that we realized is that in Europe, we are using a lot of technology, and at some point the technology becomes end of life. And a good thing about that is that this technology eventually ends up in Africa. Next slide, please. Because there's a big demand for secondhand technology in Africa. And Africa, Southeast Asia, or even some Eastern European countries, there's a lot of demand for technology that is secondhand, but still working very well. So if you go to the next slide, you'll see a small example. Everybody on this call probably understands the importance and the value that mobile phones, for example, have in Africa. But as we've also seen at the end of this cycle, next slide, you'll see that there's a waste that's being created. Tons and tons of electronics that end up in the environment. And on the next slide, you'll see some of the worst examples of what this looks like if it's not managed properly. And this is where I stop talking about the negatives. If you go to the next slide, you'll see that we are taking this negative thing and saying, no, this is not a problem, it's a solution. We're a for-profit company, we're the private sector, and what drives us is pragmatic market, money, commercial opportunities. So we see an opportunity in this waste, and we've decided that what we can do is collect these scrap electronics from Africa and turn them back into resources. And on the next slide, you'll see an example of what happened to these resources. Now, what you see here is basically the recycled product of mobile phones. But after many years of exporting mobile phones from about 9-10 countries in Africa, we realized that there's actually a bigger problem. And then next slide. You'll see that there's actually batteries, and batteries is a very hazardous product. So we decided, okay, let's start exporting batteries. If you go to the next slide, you'll see what sort of batteries we find if we're collecting them in Nigeria. And we realized that there's tons and tons of these batteries, next slide please, that are being stored in the informal sector. Now, these batteries are dangerous, but they're also a resource. If we recycle them, we can use them to create new batteries. If we just leave them lying in the environment, we're causing environmental damage and human damage. So once again, we turn this into an opportunity. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see what we managed to do in Nigeria is we collected many thousands of kilograms of batteries. It comes to about, next slide please. It comes to about 200,000 batteries that we collected in a pilot in Nigeria with the intention not to remove batteries from the environment, but to create business opportunities for people that want to be involved in the circular economy. On the next slide, you'll see that after we've taken these batteries from the informal sector, we actually took them to a recycler in Nigeria. I believe it's the first government-approved recycler, Hinkley Recycling, and these batteries were properly stored, properly transported, and eventually recycled in Europe. Can you slowly go through the next slide, please? And then one more. So what we managed to do a short while ago is that we managed to fill an entire container with 200,000 mobile phone batteries and ship them to Europe. And this is the first time this has been done from West Africa. And these batteries have been recycled responsibly according to the processes and the procedures that are appropriate for under European regulations. Now, how did we make this possible? Because during all the different presentations, we've heard things like a business model, we've heard things like how do you finance it, how do you pay for all of this? So if you go 2 slides further, you will see that what we realized is that green and sustainability and the circular economy is actually a business opportunity. We sometimes say it's not an extended producer responsibility, but an extended producer opportunity. And this is exactly as Mr. Clem said it, as my other private sector person on this panel, that there's an opportunity in green. People are investing money in doing things better. It's better for your customers. It's in the end better for your bottom line. And in the end, it just makes business sense. So what we created is a business we called One for One. Next slide, please. And it's basically a combination of something similar to carbon offsetting and extended producer responsibility. We said, as a user or a producer of electronics, if you take your responsibility outside of your country and you see that as an opportunity to do better, to involve your employees, to involve your customers, then this is a way for you to become more circular. So what happens is, next slide, please. You look at the fact that organizations replace their phones after about 19 months in Europe. Now, every time they replace this phone, there's an impact on the earth. Next slide, please. What we've done is we've said we will compensate the waste that's created by this impact. When you buy your phone, we will recycle the phone for you. Next slide, please. And we remove these phones from the places that need them most. Sure, we have phones in drawers in Europe. We have waste that's being collected in Europe, but they don't lead to the same problems as they do, for example, in a country like Nigeria. So what we do is we create social impact, economic impact, we create jobs, and we collect phones, batteries, and other equipment in African countries such as Nigeria. These are turned back into resources. On the photo, you can see some gold, for example, which comes from the phones, or cobalt that comes from the batteries. And these resources can be used to make new products, exactly as the circular economy intends. So if you go to the next slide, you can see some of the things we've been able to achieve. We've collected more than 3 million mobile phones and recycled most of them. We've collected 200,000 batteries and are still counting in Nigeria. And we've actually shipped those batteries in the first time ever to Europe with a lot of help from NESG, for example, and also working together with EPROM, the EPR of the electronics. But most importantly, we've created social impact and environmental impact in Nigeria. We've created jobs for people who are collecting or are working in the transport. And through all this, we were able to become the Netherlands' #1 circular company 2 years back. And as a couple of other people have said, we actually are very happy to be a part of this circular economy example that the Netherlands is setting. So I hope I gave you a quick introduction, I see I'm still in the time. I gave a quick introduction on the circular economy and how that is important for the private sector and how it is an opportunity. And as a final remark, I would like to say that we agree that you create a market. If you create a guaranteed market for companies to invest, then they will come and invest. So if there's a market for pet recycling, they will invest in pet recycling. And if there's a market for electronics recycling, then someone will come and invest in electronics recycling. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Smith. It's been quite brilliant. I must sincerely say you're assisting us to manage the time. You spoke for about 9 minutes. We are quite appreciative of that. Thank you so much. We want to thank all the presenters with your brilliant presentations. So, ladies and gentlemen, our distinguished participants, please kindly give some time more so that we can take your questions. And that is where we are now. A number of the questions will be taken. The ones we cannot take, we will send them around to the speakers. They will assist us to give responses to them, and then we can share eventually with you. So we have a number of questions, and I want to quickly read them out. Please, I will read the questions out, just take note of them, and then we can now start responding to them one after the other. I will run through the questions that I have. The first one is, what is the effects of digitization of the circular economy? Digitization. What is the plan for Nigerian government in assisting MSME in procuring plastic recycling machines as their contribution to circular economy? What other uses does recycled plastic have? After one or two more times, how can they have other values in the society? Perhaps Christy will want to give attention to this. And then for Mr. Adedoku, is the off-taker of RDF like Lafarge not meant to pay the private sector to reprocess the raw residual waste? Is the off-taker of RDF like Lafarge not meant to pay the private sector to reprocess the raw residual waste? The second one is, which fuel and fuel price do you compare your RDF? One other question. In the circular economy model, what roles do our higher institutions and research centers play? Just to let you know, I was part of the speakers today at the South African government platform on circular economy dialogue, and this same kind of question came up on the involvement of institutions, higher institutions especially. And so it's recurring here as well. Then there's another one. What are the best strategies for achieving waste management and circular economy in Nigeria? We have other questions, please. How can the government and industry support funding of circular economy and waste management? How can we build effective, resilient economy and better environment? What's our action or strategy for electronic waste management for sustainable and green environment in Nigeria? Perhaps Mr. Olaoresoya can give response to this. I'm not really tying anybody's name to any of the questions, except the ones that are so direct. How can we overcome challenges? This is yet another question. How can we overcome challenges and issues linked to waste management and maintenance culture in Nigeria? Overcome challenges and issues linked to waste management and maintenance culture in Nigeria. How can we improve waste management business in post-COVID-19? What can we do to improve research and development regarding circular economy? Ladies and gentlemen, there's another question, and indeed the last question that I have. NESRA, how can you enlighten people on the value of circular economy and tremendous income generation opportunities? I believe these questions are well noted. There is a statement here from NESRA, and I have been asked to say it, so I'm going to say it before you, our distinguished speakers start responding. Please reflect on those ones and let's know the one you want to reflect on, why I give this. Someone asked about registration problems with NESRA for collectors. Please, okay. Now, collectors are to register with the applicable PROs and then submit the evidence to NESRA for registration. Fees have been slashed. Information is on the website of NESRA. So go there for more information on this and see what opportunity you can actually take in going there. So ladies and gentlemen, perhaps we will start in the order with which we have presented. Perhaps Mr. Ike Achas, are you still with us? The Honorable Minister's representative, the one that's border on the governments. Okay, I think he's not there again. I can't see him. I can't see him. So let me leave the floor open. Please, if you want to speak, just unmute yourself and go on and take the question you would like to. If you want me to repeat any of the questions, please, I will do. So let's just take it. Whoever wants to speak, please unmute yourself and speak.
Okay, I would like to answer the question of who pay for RDF. In terms of preparation for RDF, you discover that what a lot of people call preparation is just to pick waste. They don't consider the impact of moisture or some heavy metals that be, or maybe some chloride that is present fed in the waste. And what I've seen so far is, unless that company himself is using the waste for something else, no company is able to prepare the waste to the quality you want, which is the major challenge. I mean, I've seen some company in Europe who does that because they supply many companies to be able to do that. So if you prepare the waste to that quality, yes, the cement industry will pay you the money. But what we've seen so far, even in the developed world, that does not happen. Secondly, you discover that if you just collect waste as we are doing in Nigeria today and you think you can prepare to RDF, it will never work. The cost today will be more than double the cost of gas. In fact, someone sent me a quotation of RDF in Nigeria was to do it from Ibadan. And he wants to charge me a cost that is almost ×2 of what today I pay for gas in Nigeria. So which means it's actually dead on arrival. Second thing we should also understand is that for me to be able to process waste, I need an investment, and I also need an operational cost to be able to do that. So with me, all these costs need to contain within the limit. So if anything go outside that cost, naturally that will not happen. So that's why we always tell people that unless you have a business of preparing the waste, it will not fly. So you can collect the waste and not preparing. I mean, today, a typical RDF plant to give me about 100,000 tons of waste per annum is in the neighborhood of $6 to $7 million. So the question is, who will put this money down and just believe that somebody will take it from you? But what people call preparation is that I just have a sorting line and I sort waste. I will get a sorting line with less than 300,000 euro. So sorting line is not a waste preparation. And so I've never really seen anyone preparing an RDF plant in Nigeria. And secondly, the second question is that it is the fuel you use. In Nigeria today, we use gas. In other countries, they use coal. So you can only compare with the cost of your own fuel. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Somebody had asked, what is RDF?
Sorry, it's okay. RDF is a refuse-derived fuel. Majorly, you look at from municipal waste, where you set up a system to sort the waste, and then you shred them, you dry them to be able to incorporate it into your cement plant.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We had this question. Yeah, Smith, go ahead.
Yes, you were gone for a second. So there was indeed a question of what is the effect of digitization on the circular economy. The effect is both positive and negative, I believe. First of all, digitization creates a lot more electronics. And since I work with the electronics, I see that it's a potential problem. But as I said in my presentation, I don't want to talk about problems. It's actually an opportunity. Digitization, especially in a country like Nigeria, there's a lot more people getting access to mobile phones, getting access to digital televisions, new set-top boxes. And all this opportunity is our companies, producers, importing products into Nigeria. They're accessing a new market, they're accessing new business models. And this is an opportunity for change. Just as the representative of Lafarge just said, it doesn't necessarily fit into existing business models. So you have to rethink this. And digitization enables us to do it properly now, to rethink this now, to build into our business models the fact that we need to take the opportunity of using our end product as a resource. That changes the business model, it changes your thinking, and it creates, in general, a better circular economy. And especially something I forgot to mention earlier, that it's very important to look at this first step. You don't have to do everything perfectly at the beginning. Just take a first step, next year take the next step. But if waiting for the perfect step, we will never get anywhere. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Please, whatever question we are giving responses to, if we can just make it very snappy, that would be very fine. Let's just give the ones we cannot give response to, we will send them to you, please, so that we can close this session. The other question is that talks about.
I'd like to comment on the question around what alternative uses are there for bottles that have been recycled multiple times. I think the idea here is that there are multiple uses, that those bottles can be put to. We can recycle those into tar that is used for roads. Can use recycle the bottles to make bricks, which we can use for bottles that are not, are not fit, for bottle recycling, can be used for other, manual purposes that will not necessarily have the health implication.
Okay, can I come in? Hello, can I come in? Hello? Can I come in to answer some of the questions related to my sector?
It seems our host video is frozen.
Yeah, Mr. Resani, I think you can go ahead. He would come back later.
The question on how can government and industry support funding of circular economy and risk management, and how can we build effective resilience and a better environment. I think, yes, there has to be an kind of inclusiveness as entrenched in government policy programs and a commitment by using the right legal and regulatory instruments. Yes, the policy guideline by government, I think the private sector needs to get involved with those policy formulations and regulation. And the clear area there is in the area of finding the right skill in the waste management industry and cost efficiency. Then we have our industrial support. Typical example from FIBRA, the plastic recycling industry, and several other industries. Waste management industries should have the right skill that can leverage on the support from industry to finance the collection system And if some of these research initiatives, if they are public sector driven, they drive faster than when they are private sector when they are private sector driven. If you look at the best case scenarios globally, you will have seen that, look at EU, for example, most of the recycling initiatives, the circular economy is public sector driven. And I think this is an area where we can manage this overlap properly, and we can improve skill in waste management. Then the resilience in the economy that we're talking about, I think it's got to do with the instruments, the legal instruments that will support that resilience. And the EPR, if effectively implemented, will bring in the resilience in that sector. Talking about the actions and strategy for electronic waste management for sustainable and green economy. Yes, I think the e-waste under the EPR program, just like every other PRO, is private sector driven. And right now, yes, we have gradual compliance because the public sector is giving a push from behind. I think this Rand Extra is trying to do a good job, though we believe it can be bigger to bring a bigger sanctions. And I think that will bring in the kind of resilience we're talking about. Then the issue of challenges of culture. How can we overcome challenges of culture, use the link of waste management and maintenance culture? Well, it has to be enforcement and enlightenment, and there should be incentives for this maintenance culture. Those who are doing the right thing, they should be given incentives, whether they are industry or whether they are the public sector. There was a time in Lagos State where industries are rewarded for being the cleanest industry annually. And I can remember in those days that most of the industries, they struggled to win that award by government. And I think if we reintroduce this, that may really help a lot in bringing that culture of maintenance and waste management among industrial sector players and also within communities. And I think that will really support. So really, then how can we improve on waste management business in the post-COVID-19? I've just informed you now that COVID-19 has taught us that yes, we have to invest more in healthcare waste management. We now have a kind of geometric increase in healthcare waste generation post-COVID-19. During COVID-19 and post-COVID-19, healthcare waste will improve, and more people need to invest in healthcare waste sector. And I'm sure there are a lot of opportunities that is coming up from that end. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We want to thank all of you, brilliant speakers, brilliant speeches, brilliant responses, and indeed, beautiful questions from our distinguished participants. We want to thank everyone for having a part in this very session, the second of the series of webinar of circular economy under the Sustainability Policy Commission of the Nigeria Economic Summit Group. We want to thank the group that have been quite supportive. Could it be Sheu, Titi, Ese? We want to thank all of you that have been at the background there supporting all that we are doing. Please continue to engage with us across all social media channels at official NESG to continue the conversations. If your questions were not responded to, if you still have more questions, please post them. We will try as much as possible to respond to all of them. And please do not forget to pre-register for the 26th Nigeria Economic Summit at www.nesgroup.org/26 to keep getting updates on all pre-summit events. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, we thank all of you and have a very good week. Continue to engage yourself, engage your family, engage everyone, adopting and putting forward the circular economy principles in all that we are doing. Thank you very much and bye for now.